As you know, I'm Serafin Pazos, so many of you know from ADL, and probably also some of you know that ADL works in both Codex and the Vitus project. So that might be an easy way of doing an event. Well, actually, in reality, the reason is a bit more, hopefully, sophisticated. Both the Codex project, and we have Professor Brunori, who's the coordinator, will explain it in a moment, but also the Vitus project are addressing big societal changes, challenges in agriculture in slightly different ways. So we thought, as both projects are a year away from conclusion, but already have significant amount of knowledge generated, so to speak, it would be a good way to put them back to back and compare how the policy environments operate and what are the similarities and differences when we try to address two different societal changes. On one case, sustainability, on another, digitalization, and very often both things at the same time. And therefore, we will have, and very thankful for her availability, Evangelina Murmura from the GIAGRI, as well as Professor Mar Delgado from University of Cordoba, who will present the outcomes of emerging outcomes from Codex, as well as Blanca, our colleague Blanca, who's doing a very similar output in the Vitus project. And then again, there will be a moment for active discussion that you are more than welcome to join us to breakout sessions, and there will be a report back and discussions. Without further ado, I think I spoke too much as always, so perhaps I give the floor to my colleague, Codex project manager, Merveille, to continue with the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serafin, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Codex workshop. So my name is Merveille Tabouachier, and I'm the project manager of Codex at ADL. So to open the session, I will first welcome Gianluca Brunori, who is the full professor of food policy at the University of Pisa, and also the coordinator of Codex. And he will open the session with some key input on what Codex stands for. Gianluca, the floor is yours.
Sorry for this. Thank you very much, Merveille. Welcome to everybody. My duty today is just to frame the workshop with the main, let's say, characteristic of Codex. And I would start from the core business of Codex, which is an attempt to frame in a general way the costs, the multidimensional costs of and benefits of digitalization. So we are addressing at the same time economic, social, and environmental costs and benefits. And for this reason, we have worked out the concept of sustainable digitalization that links the digitalization as a social transformation related to introduction of digital solution with sustainability and other societal challenges. When we want to address this issue, I think we have, first of all, to clarify what we have in mind when we talk about the digitalization. Because in the general narrative, in the media, in the public opinion, etc., digitalization means something related to the picture we can see. So a very tight web of devices, software, databases, people, infrastructure, sensors that transform totally the way operations are carried out at farm level and at supply chain level. But this kind of solutions can be defined successful when, first of all, they give an answer to societal needs. And this is the most important aspect that we really support, starting from the problems rather than from the technology. But at the same time, even if the expected outcome is positive. But then we have to ascertain that all components of this network work, and the connection between components is good, and sometimes it is not, and users are able to use the outputs of this digital solution. So this is a space for policies, because on one side we have goals of the digitalization, and then we have the aspects related to implementations. But in order to have this approach, we have to be aware of what is happening in the farming sector in Europe. In 2000, EU27 had approximately 15 million farms. In 20 years' time, this number has fallen to about 9.1 million farms. And the average size has grown quite a lot, and the only, let's say, size class growing is the one above 100 hectares. So we can see a process of concentration and a reduction of number of farms. And at the same time, we can say that 57 of farms managers are over 55 years, of which 33 over 65. So only 12% are under 40. So also these are background information, very important to see what the digitalization could do. And it is also important to see that the landscape of farming is not homogeneous. Because we can see a part of zero or near to zero digital farms, because almost everyone now have a smartphone to check the weather, for example, or to get some information on internet, but they hardly go beyond this level. But then we have digitalizing farms that are introducing a digital solution, and only a minority, which is not, let's say, represented by the sides of this cake, is digitalized. So we have to see how to create a kind of even, let's say, situation for all farms to be digitalized. And these differences are related to different types of characteristics of farms. For example, there is a question about large versus small. It is not, let's say, necessary that small farms are less digitalized than some. It depends on technologies, because some small farms are very strongly digitalized. But also we have the difference between livestock and crops, certified versus non-certified, integrated into markets, for example, into supply chain management versus isolated. Also, multifunctionality is different in terms of potential of digitalization from specialized, or also short supply chains versus global supply chains. So there is a wide diversity of farming, and let's say to this extent it is important to check whether digitalization can have the same effect on the same of different farms, or if digitalization should be contextualized. For this reason, we have chosen 20 living labs across Europe, and these living labs have a wide range of digitalization characteristics. So, of course, they cannot represent the whole diversity we have in Europe, but still we think that there is a quite a big diversity. So for this reason, for us, is a challenge to calculate cost and benefit, because we are addressing different type of technologies, different type of farming, different types of context, etc. But this is the task we have to address. What I would like to stress here is that when we talk about the digitalization, we don't just talk about the digitalization in production. So we don't talk just on precision farming, because in most of the cases, the imaginary of people and also of the media focused on production. But we know that there are areas of farming, for example, logistics, supply chain management, marketing and communication, innovation, but even administration, which can benefit a lot from digitalization. Think about, for example, the farm notebook that from next year will have to be compulsory digitalized in every farm. And are farms ready for this? We should, let's say, reflect on that. So we have several research policy related questions. First of all, for example, how can digitalization policies address the diversity of farming? How to avoid the further divide that we see? There are several divides, and in some cases the divides are growing. Which priorities to set in terms of farming, in terms of also technologies? Do we prioritize high-cost technologies for a few farms, or low-cost technologies for a big number of farms? How to integrate policy measures to create synergies for digitalization? And finally, how to assess the return on public investments. So these are the questions we are addressing in Codex, and today we are starting this discussion also with the general public. So I really hope that you have a fruitful workshop today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gianluca, for setting the scene. On this. So next, we will hear from Evangelia Murmura, who is the team leader for digitalization at DG Agri in the European Commission. So she coordinates activities to promote digitalization in agriculture across Europe, and also supports member states in implementing digital strategies within the CAP strategic plans. So Evangelia, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me, and I will share also my presentation. I hope that you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So good morning, Merveille. Good morning, everybody, from my side too. First of all, I would like to thank you also for the invitation to be here today and to participate in this webinar. After a very useful introduction made by Professor Brunori with very pertinent questions. And we're also looking forward to the discussion that you're hosting with this webinar, as the outcomes of these projects will really contribute to the reflections that we have on the future of the digitalization policy in agriculture and rural areas. I'm happy to be here to present to you an overview of the EU policy landscape on digitalization in agriculture, and hopefully that can also contribute to the discussion and the workshop breakout rooms that you will have later on. So first, please let me start with the overview of the policy landscape. As we all know, farming is not just an industry in Europe. It is a way of life. It is strategic. President von der Leyen emphasized that. And because of that, of course, farming requires really bold action for the future. The vision for agriculture and food was adopted in February of this year, and it outlines how the agri-food system shall look like in 2040. It sets out 4 priority areas. First of all, building an attractive sector, strengthening the competitiveness and resilience of the sector, future-proof the agriculture and its communities, and of course promote the value of the food and foster vibrant rural areas. Why do we need this vision? I think we all know that there are certain challenges we face, that they are increasing. In the current period, we have geopolitical tensions, challenges in respect to generational renewal, farm income struggles, and of course, the accelerating effects of climate change. So we need to succeed in these areas. And of course, in order to implement what is in the vision, we need, of course, the right enablers in place. One key driver that it is recognized also in the vision is digitalization. Digitalization in agriculture, because it is instrumental not only to strengthen the economic performance of the sector, but also to boost its competitiveness and resilience, and of course, contribute to the sustainability-related policy objectives. So one key action that was included in the vision is, of course, the launch of an EU digital strategy for agriculture to address issues that limit the digital transition, such as high costs or limited capacity building, or of course, issues of trust and connectivity. For that, of course, it was already mentioned before that digitalization is not just adopting the right tools, but it really transforms the society. And we need to be aware not only of the opportunities that it presents, but also of the risks that can bring with. And this is where policy has an important role to play. For that, from DG Agri and Commission side, we have launched two studies that will feed the development of the EU digitalization strategy in agriculture and rural areas. The first one was a foresight study that was done with a joint research center involving workshops across the EU and the participation of different stakeholders. A foresight study in order to understand what are the long-term implications of digitalization for EU farmers and rural communities. As it was very well introduced before by Professor Brunori, we need to also to understand what are the risks that we need to mitigate from policy actions, but also how to leverage the opportunities that come with digitalization. So this foresight study that you can find it also on the website of the European Commission provides a vision framework of what should be the values that need to guide this digital transition and how strategies can really mitigate relevant risks. At the same time, we launched also in the Commission also a survey-based study in order to understand where we are in respect to the adoption of digital tools in agriculture in the European Union. This is something that we were really interested in order to understand the baseline of the adoption of digital tools, understand whether certain member states are advancing more than others, and whether the digital divide is really more prominent in certain areas or not. So this survey-based study started last year, was launched last year, with data collection happening from June to September of 2024. The JRC surveyed farmers from 9 countries, France, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Poland, Spain, Greece, and Lithuania, in order to have a representative sample of the EU countries. And we surveyed around 1,440 farmers in different sectors. The report is not published yet. It has been finalized and hopefully will be published later in summer of 2025. But I would be happy here to present to you some preliminary results that were also presented by the Joint Research Center in the AgriDigital Conference in the Agri-Food Days in 2024. Here I will show you some data. There is no, for the moment, multi-factor analysis that I will present here, but there will be later in the report. But giving you some snapshots of what we found with the survey in the EU digitalization adoption. Here you have the results in respect to the crop farming sector. As you can see, the farmers that were surveyed were asked whether they adopt a number of digital tools, from digital field records to really more specialized crop farming technologies like soil sensors or variable rate application technologies. And what is interesting to see is that here, where we have what we can say more general or software-based digital technologies like the digital field records or maps, we have the highest adoption rate, more than 50% for the digital field records. However, the more we advance with the specialization of these digital technologies, the more we see that the adoption rates are really lower. And we can see, for example, that for the variable rate application technologies, we have an adoption of 10 to 12%. While if we go for, let's say, drones for spraying, then this is even lower at the adoption level. If we look now at the livestock sector, we observe a similar pattern, meaning that digital livestock records, so farm management systems and softwares, are really highly adopted by the farmers. At the same time, when we go once again towards more specialized digital technologies like collars or robotic feed pushers, then we see that the adoptions also are lower. Now, please allow me to go to another aspect of digitalization, what I call the other side of the coin of the digitalization, which is the data that are also produced with these technologies. In this study, we also wanted to understand whether digital tools are really used for data collection or whether farmers are really sharing this kind of data, contributed to the whole data economy and providing value with their data. In respect to data collection, what we observe is that agriculture is still not very highly digitalized. So it's mostly paper-based, the data collection. And we see that if we talk about digitalization, it's mostly digitization, meaning that farmers do use spreadsheets or scanned documents, but we see less the use of specialized applications and software or even automated systems like sensors, drones, and IoT devices for this kind of data collection. So there is still room for improvement in respect to the data collection and the use of digital technologies for that. As regards the sharing of data, so farmers that participated in the survey were asked whether they do share the data and with which actors. As we also expected, we understand that most of the farmers, they do not share their data. And if they do so, then they share them either with consultants and advisors, other farmers or associations, but it's less common to share the data or the willingness to share the data with public administrations, researchers, or even financial institutions. So also for the advancement of the sharing of the data and the subsequent development of digital tools or even AI applications, there is also a long way to go in order to build this trust that farmers need for sharing their data. In respect to barriers and drivers, I will not go into the details because also farmers were asked to respond what kind of barriers they have in details in order to adopt digital tools. What comes out of the study is that the high cost of the digital technologies is the main barrier for that. But also we have the lack of knowledge on available digital technologies, that it is also considered as a barrier, but in general, a lack of awareness and skills around that. These are the main barriers that were identified through the study. In respect to drivers for the adoption, of course, we find here what it is also acknowledged by other studies that digital technologies help farmers reduce operational costs and improve the efficiency of input use. But what was also surprising to see is that one driver for farmers is really to meet regulatory or legislative requirements at EU or national level. So this is something that they consider that digital technologies can really help with. So I would finish with these preliminary results from the JRC study, and I would invite you also to have a look at it when it is published in July. It will be published also in the Commission website. But as I said before, we're working towards this development of the EU digital strategy, and we need to build also not only on what we identify through the studies and through the research projects and their contributions, but we need to build on what has already been the legal framework and support that farmers have at EU level. As you know, of course, in respect to legal frameworks, the Common Agricultural Policy is the main policy to provide support to the farmers financially, but also in terms of capacity building in respect to digitalization. But there are also other funds that complement this landscape, such as the Digital Europe program, aiming mainly to the development of the appropriate technologies, the Horizon Europe, of course, as you know, with the very important research projects, but we also have the Connecting Europe facility to address issues on connectivity, and the Recovery and the Resilience Fund for more large infrastructures. So when we talk about the EU digital landscape, it is important also to connect these dots and the fact that the CAP is not alone in supporting this digital transition. Getting into the CAP in more details, I think it is important to acknowledge that there are several instruments that correspond to the farmers' needs. First of all, in respect to financial support, farmers can adopt digital tools by through investment support under rural development measures, but they can also adopt digital tools through eco schemes or agro-environmental commitments. We have seen several member states that they do design this kind of interventions, for example, adoption of farm management information systems or precision farming technologies specifically to achieve environmental goals. At the same time, CAP is really important for the capacity building of farmers. Under the CAP, there is the obligation to provide advice on digital issues. There is also the obligation for the member states to use the farm sustainability tool for the optimal nutrient management at field level. Member states can also design knowledge and training interventions in order to respond and advance the digital skills of farmers. And of course, there are several cooperation measures which are also very important to bring digitalization on the farm, such as the EIP operational groups, but also LEADER and Smart Villages to advance digitalization in the rural communities. In respect to infrastructure, even though the CAP also provides this kind of opportunity, what we have observed is that member states use mostly the other funds that are more appropriate to this kind of infrastructure setup. These are the main elements under the CAP, but allow me just to go through very quickly. I know that time is pressing. Through what is happening also outside the CAP, which is also very important, especially in respect to building the trust that farmers and in general citizens need in respect to the data sharing and further digitalization of the sectors. There are several cross-sectoral legislation, horizontal legislations that have come into place, such as the Data Governance Act and the Data Act, where we have the rules to facilitate the use and the reuse of certain public sector data that cannot be made available as open data. Through the Data Act, we enhance the rules so that there is better access to IoT data. This way, we can improve access to data for individuals and businesses and make the data economy work and the further development of tools. And at the same time, we have the open data directive in order to help the public sector bodies in the EU to really share the data in a trustworthy manner. And this is also very relevant for agriculture because under the open data, we have the high value data sets, including the geospatial data that also pertain in the agricultural sector. Finally, an important initiative in that respect is the development of the Common European Agricultural Data Space, which aims really to build a secure and trusted interoperable environment to facilitate data sharing across the EU agri-food sector, and this way to enhance all, let's say, sustainability dimensions of the sector, the economic, environmental, and societal aspects. I will finish with some new initiatives that have been announced or are coming into play in the coming period, and I think it will be also important maybe for you also to contribute in that. It has been announced in April the AI Continent Action Plan from the European Commission, with aim to make Europe a global leader in artificial intelligence. The aim is really to increase access to high quality data and foster the AI adoption in strategic sectors. So this is a major initiative from the Commission, and it announced, included in this AI Continent Action Plan, was the Apply AI strategy and the Data Union strategy. The Apply AI strategy has as a purpose to boost the use of AI in strategic sectors. Agriculture is one of them. There was a consultation feedback period that was recently closed, and the adoption of the strategy is planned for end of 2025. At the same time, in order to boost, of course, the AI in sectors and in the EU, there is the Data Union strategy that was also announced. It has as aim to foster an internal market for data and scale up the AI development. It is important that there is still the feedback period, that it is open until the 18th of July, in case you would like also to contribute to, and the adoption is also planned for the end of 2025. So all these initiatives will be built and be complementary together with the EU digitalization strategy for agriculture, which will build on several key points on how to promote an even adoption of digital tools, how to overcome barriers in respect to complexity, to fragmented data ecosystems, to connectivity and skills, how we can use these digital tools really to meet regulatory requirements, to optimize inputs, but also to respond to new business growth opportunities, and how we will be able to foster this enabling environment and collaboration that we need for the digital transition to happen in a fair and forward-looking manner. So that would be all from my side, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Angelia, for this comprehensive overview of the EU policy landscape. So now, moving forward, we will open the floor to Mar Delgado, who is the full professor at the University of Cordoba and a key partner in Codex, in charge of some policy tasks. So today she will share some key findings from the latest and also ongoing research on policy environments in farm digitalization. Mar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, but you have to switch the screen.
Again? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
now?
Yes, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Evangelia, for this presentation. It has been very interesting. And I think that some of our findings are similar to what you have been mentioning. Okay, I would like to start with a very short presentation of how we are working. As Merveille has mentioned, the UCO team, the team at the University of Cordoba, myself and Antonio Hurtado, we are in charge of the analysis of the policy environment in the different countries that are in Codex project. So the way we are doing this is first screening UN national policy initiatives that deal with the digitalization, agriculture, and rural areas like the CAP and national strategic plans. We also had a task to review previous policy recommendation of different past projects. And our main work is to interview experts and policymakers to understand how are these policy environments in each of the countries. We already submitted a report, a draft report on these policy environments in March of 2024 that was approved by the Commission and that is available in our website in case you are interested. That's very short to mention that we check around 150 projects to identify if there were policy recommendations dealing with the digitalization of agriculture. In this, the main results were that these recommendations were linked to infrastructure, data and data governance, skills and capacity building, the political, financial, and legal frameworks of digitalization, different tools and technologies, and also some social aspects. But what was relevant for us is this screening was done for around 10 years or even more, and the policy recommendations were almost the same 10 years ago than we can see now. So that's something to think about. Either the recommendations are not taken into account, either they are not updated enough to make a meaning. Okay, so as I said, the main bulk of our work are these interviews. I can tell you that we have done over 70 interviews so far. The final deliverable should be submitted at the end of September this year. And we are working with the 18 countries that are part of Codex. 15 are EU, 3 are not. We have also interviews with some experts in different European institutions. And we also would like to mention that initially we focus our interviews just in, we said policymakers, but maybe it was like politicians. Now we realize that the idea was to have around 5 per country. And we found that work is like very repetitive when we interview 5 people from the same country. And then we open our scenario. And now we are also interviewing other experts, and it's quite interesting because when we talk to people from ministries or authorities or wherever, we found a much more positive view that when we go deeper in the ground and we identify and we interview other people like a representative of agriculture chambers, rural support services, other farmer associations, cluster, even technology developers. So the picture changed quite a lot, and I think that's an interesting thing that we will mention in our report, and that also justify the twist that we did in the interviews. Okay, we could say that our countries can be grouped in 3 different groups, but we don't have yet the data, the final data to decide which are in which of these stages. But we can classify the countries according to the digital uptake that is very highly influenced by affordability, the digital literacy of farmers and advisors, and the readiness of the supportive environment. And also according to the technology development that is influenced by the complexity of the farm, the data that is available, and also interoperability plays an important role here, as well as connectivity. But that is being improved, the connectivity, as I will mention later on. So we can identify, as I said, 3 type of countries that are more or less advanced on this. Okay, what are some of the main results we found? we can say that the level of digitalization in agriculture is very much related with the level of digitalization in the country. So agriculture is not different. In countries where the e-government, where all the electronic procedures are much developed, the digitalization in agriculture, it is also. We can say that connectivity is improving, I would say even quite a lot, but it's still an issue in more isolated countries or where the orography, the geography is more complicated. We can also say that there's an increase in data gathering in different institutions, both public and private, but often it is not used for decision making, right? We have more data, but the decision support systems are not so developed. We also found that we need granular data to improve decision making. We can have a lot of satellite information, let's say big scale information, but we need also much small scale information like soil quality, type of vegetation, different other parameters that need like ground information. Also, we found that uptake might be difficult at the individual level. Evangelia has mentioned some of the barriers, and that most of these decisions should be adopted collectively to reduce costs, to have continuous support, to have update, and so on. And that is very difficult in some countries. That is a big gap, I think, and we should work on that in supporting the collective adoption of digital tools. Also, what is most demanded as the most effective way to boost digitalization is demo farm or peer-to-peer exchange. These training courses or similar are not much appreciated, neither, especially by end users. Also, we found that digitalization is a multi-stage process and access to the final stages is quite limited for many farmers. We have also here several factors that influence the uptake that are similar to what Gianluca and Evangelia has mentioned, like the type of sector, the size of the farm, the technology of maturity for this type of farm and the easiness to use, the affordability, funding, and cost-benefit balance, demographic factors, of course, digital literacy, infrastructure. Very important, the supportive environment to foster skills, but also trust in technologies and awareness about available technologies. And also how the technology has an effect on farmers' quality of life, right? It can make their life easier. Okay, regarding CAP, we can say that CAP and public administration have a key role in driving digitalization. Evangelia has mentioned that many people use it because it's like compulsory to have access to funds or to have to deliver information to the authorities. Also, there are very different strategies in the digitalization in the national strategic plans. And in some countries was the first time that they draft a digitalization plan for the agriculture sector. We can say also that CAP is driving digital transformation because for many farmers, they have to use this software to document what they are doing. But we can also say that there's strong reluctance on farmers to share their data because they don't know how they will be used. They are afraid they will use for controls or for creating problems to them. Okay, there's also a concern about increased bureaucracy and complexity of CAP, what leads to dissatisfaction. They don't see yet as a support for the work and well-being. The demand is more. And also, they also demand more funding schemes for small farmers and acknowledgement that they need the different tools and training. Very important. Most of the tools should be available in smartphones. Forget about farmers having computer dashboards and so on. Okay, now just to finish some results, some final results on the idea that other policy areas also influence digitalization, as has already been mentioned. So I will not use more time on this. I'm closing my time. Okay, 10 key messages. First, policies play a crucial role in agriculture digitalization. So EU legal strategies are boosting adoption, but it's also very important the national legislative support. Those countries that have also national support are going further in the adoption and in the level of digitalization. Very important that digitalization for the agriculture sector requires specific and tailor-made policies, and we have also seen some advances that we're really happy with this. To understand that digitalization is a process, it's not an end, it's something that takes time, effort, but and it is worthwhile. There are different divides affecting agriculture digitalization, and that farmers' skills, competencies, and abilities are a crucial challenge. Also that AKIS, Agriculture Administration, and farming advisors need to upskill and reskill their competencies to give answer to the new needs. That's very, very important. And also that farmers will adopt digital technology is the cost-benefit balance is clearly positive, but not because somebody tells you should do it or force them to do it. Adoption in our analysis is boosted by government requirements, including EU policies, market demands, as Gianluca has mentioned, but also labor shortage in those sectors where there are not people to do the different tasks or jobs. That is also boosting a lot robots and other type of digital techniques or tools. Also, we found also that agriculture training is being integrated more and more. They are integrating more and more digital skills in the curriculum, and that's happening from vocational training to universities. And also that a real boost in the digitalization of agriculture needs a joint work of public and private sector. None of them can do isolatedly. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mar, for this really comprehensive presentation. So just to remind everyone, we will have breakout sessions later where we'll dive a bit deeper into the topics that were covered, and we'll also have a time for questions to the speakers afterwards. So we're slightly late, but we will first welcome our last speaker, Blanca Casares, who is a policy expert in rural and territorial development at EDEL. So she has experience in rural development and agricultural policies in Europe, and she will present some insights from both the Beatles project and also a policy brief that was developed in EDEL last year. Blanca, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I hope you see my screen.
Yes, but it's not in presentation mode.
Yeah. Okay, I know we are running a bit late, and I will try to cut a little bit to recover the time. Good morning, everyone. My name is Blanca Casares, and I'm grateful to present today and contribute to the discussion to policy pathways for sustainable agriculture. In my presentation, I'm going to speak about EU policy alignment for the transition to climate-smart agriculture based on results of the Horizon Europe project Beatles. To start the presentation, I would like to make some emphasis on this timeline of key EU policy milestones. I'm not going to enter to the timing, but just to highlight that the years 2024, last year, and this year are especially important for using Beatles results with major reviews, proposals, and key milestones like the vision of agriculture and food, the multi-financial framework, CAP simplifications packages, and soon the new CAP proposal. I want also to showcase 3 key policy documents developed by EDEL that offers guide guide and reforms for innovation in future agricultural policies. The first article on the path of the post-2027 Common Agricultural Policy. The second brief explores supply chain fairness concept within EU policies. And the third, that I will present today in more detail, highlights the barriers and drivers across EU policies to achieve climate-smart agriculture. Just to quickly know a little bit more about the project, BEETLES is our Horizon project, which is the acronym for Behavioral Change Toward Climate-Smart Agriculture. We are running our studies in 5 use cases. You see here in the screen: Lithuania, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands and Spain, with different value chains. It is coordinated by the Agricultural University of Athens. In this case, EIDL is leading the work on policy. And just to quickly present climate smart agriculture, it is not a set of practices that can be universally applied. It's rather an approach that involves different elements that are embedded in the specific context and tailored to meet local needs. CSA is an international concept from the United Nations and has 3 pillars: productivity, climate adaptation, and climate mitigation. In the project, EIDL has conducted an identification of the policy framework at use case level to adopt climate-smart agricultural practices. Each of the 5 cases selected 5 practices. It means a total of 25 CSA practices, such as precision farming, organic farming, sustainable irrigation, renewable energy. You see here the different countries, value chains, and the practices. And as the work presented by Mar now in CODEX, the work that we have run combine deep analysis of the 5 national CAP strategic plan, other national regulations, and also consultation interviews with managing authorities, paying agencies, advisors, and evaluators, with around 30 inputs from external stakeholders to understand how existing policies enable or hinder the climate-smart agriculture adoption of practices. The analysis of the CAP strategic plans of each of the 5 countries where the project is developing case studies has made it possible to identify CAP interventions, direct payments, sectorial and rural development that support the value chains and the practices under study. It reminds me what has been presented by Evangelia, and I'm looking forward to see in the report also the summary of some of these CAP interventions, but from our 5 countries. I summarize the different interventions supporting our practices. For example, specific eco schemes under Pillar 1, such as diverse crop production and carbon agriculture green or in-net cover, carbon farming, extensification of the total permanent grassland on the holdings, integrated grasslands and wetland management, grass crops. And we have also seen for all these interventions, we have calculated the average the amount dedicated for these interventions with the average of the total budget of the plan. And you see here in eco scheme, it's go from 1 to 21%. The 21% is in the case of the Netherlands, that they have a single eco scheme in the plan. And you see here under Pillar 2 other interventions like environmental commitments and investment in sustainable practices at farm modernization, with fundings range between 0.1 to 12.5. But also for investments, as it was highlighted by Evangelia, and you see some examples here, from 0.2 to 5.5. All this information is going to be published soon with more detail for all these interventions, and I think will be really useful also for policymakers to have some inspiration of typology of interventions that can be designed to support climate-smart agriculture, but also smart technologies. Beyond concrete practices and interventions, I posed the question when we were developing this policy brief on barriers and drivers: is the common agriculture, but also other EU policies, contributing to climate smart agriculture? For this policy brief, we examined 23 key elements of the European policy framework relevant to achieve the CSA. It assesses how these policies align with the 3 CSA principles: productivity, climate adaptation, and mitigation. And the selected policies span a range of sectors, including agriculture, food, environment, climate, water, soil, rural, digitalization, and industry. And let's now take a closer look at how current EU policies align with the objectives. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see a list of policies ranging from the climate smart agriculture, the Farm to Fork strategy, the EU climate law, biodiversity strategy, and also different directives like the framework of LULUCF or EU digital strategy. Each of these policies has been assessed for how it supports the 3 objectives of climate smart agriculture, and the color code reflects D in green if it has a strong direct contribution, I in yellow if it has a partial contribution, or the dash means undetermined. To the right, you see 3 columns grouping the policies by the primary contribution to the different areas. The green section shows policies that support productivity, then the middle column for climate change adaptation and mitigation. Key takeaways from this analysis include the CAP and Farm to Fork strategy stand out policies that contribute across all 3 pillars. Biodiversity strategy, LULUCF regulation, or the EU digital strategy also show strong cross-cutting relevance, but some sectorial policies such as the Nitrate Directive, Pesticides Directive, the Water Framework Directive play a more target but still crucial role, especially in environmental adaptation and mitigation. This matrix and the way of assessing this for us is valuable because it highlights where existing policies are already aligned with CSA goals, and just and importantly, where gaps and opportunities for better integration exist. Looking ahead, this type of mapping can support policymakers in mainstreaming CSA across all relevant EU initiatives, ensuring that agricultural transformation contributes to climate goals while remaining productive and economically viable. It also underscores the need for a systematic approach with both current and future sectorial policies to enable fair, inclusive, sustainable switch to climate smart practices. Just to finalize, I would like to conclude with some policy ideas to design and support the transition. First and foremost, we need a strong and unified vision. The vision for agriculture and food alongside the 2025 European Commission Work Plan calls for an integrated approach. And this holistic vision must be woven into all EU policy frameworks, especially as we look ahead to the green and digital transition and targets for 2030 and 2050. Second, we must simplify and harmonize. The common agricultural policy must be made more coherent across sectors. We are looking for this CAP simplification package cross-sectorial that is coming still this year or next year. This involves aligning it with environmental directives critically without undermining existing rules, such as those on conditionality. Capacity building is also essential for policymakers, managing authorities, paying agencies, advisors, and for sure the beneficiaries, when sometimes they will be the first provider of data, for example. Next, we must align digitalization with sustainability. This involves fostering long-term transitions through farm-centric policies, promoting small-scale and environmental-friendly agriculture. And here I agree with Gianluca, from the needs and not from the technologies. We should also leverage the EU digital strategy by tapping into agricultural innovation pathways like precision farming, data-driven decision-making, and this we can directly support CSA's principles. And finally, also Evangelia spoke about that the common European agricultural data space can be a game changer with initiatives like AgriData Space. This kind of tools.
Now we will start the interactive workshop. So we'll be split into 2 breakout rooms, and in those rooms we'll be able to explore more into detail the different topics that were explored today. So in the first breakout room, we'll focus on policy environment for digital agriculture, and it will be moderated by Antonio Hurtado from the University of Cordoba, who has been working with more on the report that she presented. And the second one will focus on policy interventions for climate-smart agriculture, and it will be moderated by Blanca. So now you will be automatically moved into your rooms, and the discussion will last around 45 minutes. And then we will come back to the plenary room, and we will discuss the main conclusions, and then open the floor for questions or for interventions and reflections from all of you.
20 minutes or so. What we would like to do is that the both facilitators, for which we are grateful for, both Blanca and Antonio, could present the results of the discussion. I was facilitating or helping with the one digitalization that Antonio left, so I think it was rich, and I'm sure Blanca discussion was as well. Don't worry, both of you. We have taken notes, which you just need to for the report that we will circulate at the end of the in a few days at the end of the meeting with all the discussions in each break rooms. So you just highlight the key findings you had or you have learned or strike you as most interesting or innovative in your respective breakouts. Maybe we could perhaps start with Blanca, if you don't mind, and then Antonio, and of course people will be happy to react to those statements. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, please, after we'll give the floor to the group in case they have any complement. We have been discussing on policy interventions for climate smart agriculture, mainly on CAP, but also opening at the beginning the reflection of additional legal frameworks that needs to be considered when supporting the climate smart agriculture approach. We examined some of these more than 20 legal frameworks in details, but maybe was something that it was missing. And then in these terms, we started the discussion with, okay, to what extent is possible to integrate this climate smart agriculture approach in the EU framework, and then we were reflecting that more than looking this concrete integration of CSA, what we are trying also to identify in the project is another way of integrate this systematic approach and inspire the adoption of this approach. For example, in the case of the Netherlands, the way of designing the eco schemes that is a set of practices with different categories of farmers, and they reward farmers based on the transition on management based on the adoption of a full set of practices. Then this systematic approach is what we are looking for, and And then in the discussion appear that still there is a lack of assessment of agri-food piece of legislations or having a more integrated picture of agri-food regulation that needs to be considered in the analysis when we are thinking on climate smart agriculture, and at the same time a little bit more deeper on the EU digital strategy. To what extent the digital strategy, current strategy, is supporting or understanding the needs of the agricultural sector, and at the end is supporting farmers in the adoption of technologies. Some clarity, for example, in this case of legal aspect for data sharing, and in this case of the EU digital strategy, where we were reflecting of this concrete needs of the sector agricultural when the primary data comes from beneficiaries, farmers, and data from farms, and this is a concrete case if we compare with other sectors that are under the EU digital strategy. Then a game changer could be a more articulated implementation of the Common European Agricultural Data Space, the agri-data for space, another monitoring system at EU level, and the articulation of the digital farm books. After this more general discussion of the systematic approach and the coherence between different policies, we entering in how this can be integrated in the CAP strategic plans, maybe with some mandatory targets on coherence between different strategies at national level, and even budget implications, align some of the CAP strategic plan budget allocation coherent with other plans. We were then thinking on the needs for this transition in terms of management from conventional to more sustainable practices or even organic, and there it was really highlighted in terms of barriers and limitations, the lack of knowledge at all levels, not only the beneficiaries, what needs to be done to make the transition to adopt sustainable practices, climate smart agriculture in this case, but also advisors as a key actor in this process, and managing authorities and paying agencies. And this has been, it makes an evidence from the Beatles case studies when a lack of knowledge or a systematic approach for advisors, public and private, make completely different the picture of applying for one schemes, available schemes or not, how to work with a multi-set of practices and advise the transition with different practices of different nature, like organic farming, but at the same time renewable energy, and then it is needed more guidance coming from the EU national level from a different farm management. And we were also reflecting a little bit what is this role of these intermediate persons at regional level that are the advisors to really facilitate the process. We were also thinking on the needs of models to quantify results. It means when we are thinking in the transition, in the adoption, we are not thinking in a single individual practices. We are thinking in a set of practices that farmers will adopt to make this transition in medium term, at least. Then how to measure, quantify these results, the needs for data availability, the timing needed, and how to measure, isolate the different impact of the different practices. This needs for models to quantify results. It is clear, and just a later reflection on the scale needed. we were thinking, we were speaking about, okay, eco schemes are just annual basis schemes, available schemes. In the case of rural development, timing is a little bit longer, but we are still in a CAP programming period or EU fund programming period that sometimes is not real with the needs for a real adoption. Then how to make the flexibility in the next round of CAP plans to managing authorities, paying agencies be able to support the transition to CSA or other sustainable approaches. And with this, I'm ending.
Okay, maybe Antonio, you can. Well, first, maybe just to avoid mixing things too much, is there any other comment and reaction from the audience before we get to Antonio, just to because there are slightly different angles to the same question. I don't see any hands raised, and I appreciate that for some people start to be lunchtime. So maybe go to thank you, Blanca, much appreciated. Antonio, maybe you can just go ahead and then we take additional questions or any comments before we close.
Okay.
Antonio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Serafin. So I will be brief also because I have some loose ideas and also to leave some time for discussion before we go. So what we heard in our breakout room was in fact a corroboration of what was discussed in the presentations in the first half of the meeting. The first so key point is that, as was said before, the digitalization of the agricultural sector is a complex process that involves many factors. And because of that, so some specificity is needed in terms of policies. But having said that, so there are some common patterns and trends that we can see across the EU, at least across the comments that have been made in the breakout room. So one of them is that CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, is helping, but there is an important gap at the level of the local authorities, and that more communication is needed at the local level. And that is in part due to the fact that the authorities mainly are based in capital cities, so away from the ground, and so many times that message doesn't make it to the people that they want them to adopt these technologies. So and also some of the issues that can be seen on the ground is that the low cost increases the adoption of these technologies. Even so, when we see older farmers that are more reluctant to incorporate new technologies in their operations. But one of the issues, still talking about costs, is that the small farmers very often cannot pay from their pockets, so they need assistance to fund the investment in these technologies. Now, but even before, so they do adopt these technologies. So some help is needed in the system to test before they invest. So some efforts are needed to de-risk the investment for the farmers, and this can be done as it was said earlier in the first half of the workshop. It can be done through demonstration farms, through facilities where these technologies are tested and also they are demonstrated so that farmers can see how they work and they can trust the technology, what these technologies can do for them. They can evaluate the costs and also they can get some training on how these technologies are operated. Another very important point that was made was that the policies should focus on the services to farmers instead of on farmers directly. So what is really needed is what policies and programs should really support is the service organizations that understand the needs of the farmers. And so, and this is in line in a big extent to what Blanca just said about the what was discussed in the other breakout room. Another another important topic that was raised in our breakout room was that sometimes we tend to put technologies ahead of the business models or the farm. And when in fact the business model cannot be just to buy the equipment and deploy it, but instead the technology needs to fit the business model of the farm. And so one way to address that is by embedding digital literacy and understanding of business, so in farmers, so that they can put the two pieces together. Another issue, another point that was raised was that very often we fail to understand the governance structure that is required to be put in place to foster the adoption of these technologies. And so a little bit more analysis perhaps is required to identify the patterns of variability on this regard. And the last point that I have here is that there is also a perceived lack of integration between the policies and the risk profiles of the farmers. So this also needs to be addressed to bridge the gap in the adoption of these technologies. Serafin, do you have something else?
I was just going through my 5 pages of notes, and I think you managed to cover it all, which is quite a lot considering you did that in a few minutes. But yes, you cover it all. So, colleagues, any reaction, particularly for those from the other group, about this? Any of these strikes you as odd, or that should be better qualified? Happy to take any comment, criticism, and suggestion. This is part of, as you know, of a process both in Codex and also Beatles. We are a year from a conclusion, so we're going to continue working on this topic. So any constructive criticism or suggestion is always welcome at this stage. I don't see everybody at the same because we are still a few. There's any hands raised? Okay. Austin, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you so much. How is this model in terms of bottom-up approach? How easy is to implement the bottom-up approach? Meaning the affected have got more voice than the people who are making decisions.
Maybe either Antonio or Blanca would like to answer, or Professor Brunori or Professor Delgado. I mean, I think that's an interesting concept, because I believe in Europe we have a number of approaches for bottom up. Developmental policies outside Europe work slightly different ways. So any reflection on that, just to answer Austin? And I see also, giving over the time, I think also maybe Carmen as well like to make a question, so maybe we can take the two of questions together. You can provide a reaction. Carmen, the floor is yours. You're muted. I think maybe it was an accidental call, accidental hand. Carmen Bracarescu. Maybe it was just an accidental thing, or maybe she has a connection problem. Anyway, I think it's just a comment for final statement or final reflection that either you, Antonio or Blanca, would like to say about what you have learned today before we go to the conclusion. So, is there anything else you would like to add, both either of you?
Yeah, just to also quickly reply to Austin in terms of bottom up. I mean, in the CAP is integrated in different ways, even through the consultations phases when member states are running the SWOT analysis, the needs prioritization, depending of the member state. They are some consultations that allow different voices and different stakeholders to provide insights. And at the end, it means that is supporting the design of some of the interventions, and they are concrete interventions like the ones on cooperation, on even knowledge and leader that are involving this approach. But for sure, there are a lot of room for improvement in this case. And just a final takeaway, I think we have seen that the approach in both projects has been quite similar, starting with the analysis of the CAP and also testing these first findings with external actors like key people, managing authorities, paying agencies, and so on. I think in both, or at least takeaways from my side, is how go down until national, regional, local authorities to improve the adoption, communication information of all these schemes available for final beneficiaries, and strong need for literacy, capacity building training, not only for the beneficiaries that will need to use different systems and starting from Gianluca slide, we know that the demographic, who is behind the sector, sometimes is people 55 plus with a concrete knowledge and needs in the sector, but sometimes with lack of generational renewal, and it implies no intention of adoption of new practices, investments, and so on, because there is an old population. But not only from then, or really capacity building knowledge for the advisors, more harmonized system of advisors, extensive system for advisors, not only private, also public network of advisors, managing authorities and paying agencies, because to support the adoption of these kind of practices, smart technologies, and so on, requires civil servants that are more trained on the needs of the sector and another kind of design and measuring results and so on. And this is an important takeaway, the needs of capacity building and training.
Okay, any last comment from yourself, Antonio? Micro.
Yeah, you are sorry. Yes, no, just to highlight what has been said a few times, that there is a huge variability across the EU. So this goes about farmer size, farmer's age, idiosyncrasies, the different governance frameworks, even the geography. So if it's a flat land versus mountainous land, if it's a big country, if it's a small country, also the competing priorities. So for governments, somebody in our interviews mentioned that, for instance, now with the conflict in Ukraine, that is pulling resources away from investment in areas like agriculture, and also quoting another. Somebody in today's breakout room says that what suits a Spanish farmer doesn't suit Estonian farmer. I think that's a very good summary of what has been discussed today, and also one of the key lessons that we should take when analyzing these policies.
Thank you. I thank both of you for stepping up to the challenge. It's always difficult to do in half an hour, such as when certain thing I think it's been successful. As mentioned before, giving the floor to Merve to conclude. I mean, the reason we wanted to have this at this stage was because both Codex had an extensive piece of work, and then we realized it's very similar to a similar piece of work is done on CAP in sustainable agriculture in beetles at all. Why we don't see together back to back the results and see elements of consistency? I mean, there are two big challenges, some of them overlapping because sometimes you can need this digital technology to sustainable practices in agriculture. And we see that, as we have seen, very similar problems, very similar differences. And therefore, I think it's stimulating for the year that is left in those projects to actually find out further. As you know, only in 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, the new CAP will be unveiled in a significant way on top of what's been said in the Division of Agriculture and Food. And definitely in the coming sessions of Codex, we will analyze what it means, the new policy landscape, significant change we expect for digitalization. I don't think digitalization is something that has much to fear from the new CAP, because that's something that clearly is going to be driven because of the new, geopolitical mission approach that the EU will have on things like digital or agricultural sovereignty. So I think it's a good moment for some of the recommendations are going to come from Codex, but also from beetles to land in the right time where these discussions will be coming to a head. And will definitely be part of the next AKA, of which the next proceedings, Merve will conclude highlighting next steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serafin. So to conclude, I would like to thank all the speakers for sharing their expertise, and also to all the facilitators of the workshop for managing that, and also for all of you for your contributions and your reflections, both in the breakout rooms, but also the questions that we had. So before we wrap up, as Serafin was saying, so this event is organized in the framework of the Codex Knowledge Accelerator, which is, as all the other events that we've organized so far in Codex. So the Knowledge Accelerator, so it's a platform that was designed to facilitate knowledge exchange and collaboration, exactly as we did today. And the goal is really to ensure that we all have access to the latest insights, tools, strategies, and also policies that are to tackle change and to ensure digitalization of agriculture, and to ensure it's going to be done in a sustainable way. So stay tuned for the next KA event that will take place after the summer. So we will be launching that event very soon. And for those who are interested, you can also register to join the Knowledge Accelerator community to follow all the work that we're doing and to stay updated on everything related to digital agriculture. So with that, that is the end of today's presentation and today's session. So have a great afternoon, and thank you all again.